October 4, 1982, East Sahara Avenue,
Las Vegas, Nevada.
The desert air was still warm when Frank, Lefty Rosenthal slid into his Cadillac Eldorado outside Tony Roma's restaurant. He turned the key. The bomb detonated instantly. Flames swallowed the front of the car. Windows shattered across the parking lot. Smoke rose into the Nevada sky. Witnesses froze. Some ran. Others stared. The most powerful sportsbook operator in Las Vegas was supposed to be dead. But he wasn't. Rosenthal crawled out of the wreckage, burned but alive. The explosion had failed by inches. A metal plate beneath the driver's seat, installed by General Motors, redirected the blast. The newspapers called it a mob hit. They were right, but the bomb wasn't the beginning. It was the consequence. The real story started years earlier, inside counting rooms, wiretapped restaurants, and secret meetings where millions were skimmed from casino floors and sent back to Chicago. Rosenthal didn't die that night. He survived long enough to become a liability. And in the Mafia, liabilities are eventually corrected. Frank Rosenthal was not born into violence. He was born into numbers. January 12, 1929, Chicago, Illinois, the son of Jewish immigrants who ran a small produce business. Discipline, routine, precision. Those were the rules of his childhood. But Rosenthal's real education happened at racetracks. As a teenager, he studied odds sheets the way other boys studied textbooks. He memorized betting lines, calculated probabilities in his head, watched patterns most people missed. He did not intimidate. He calculated. By the early 1950s, Rosenthal was operating illegal bookmaking operations throughout Chicago. Quietly, efficiently.
No flashy suites.
No street reputation. Just profit. That caught the attention of the Chicago outfit. Unlike many mob associates, Rosenthal wasn't muscle. He wasn't Italian. He could never be made. But he had something more valuable. Predictable earnings. He became known as Lefty because of his betting style. Taking heavy action on one side to balance the books. Risk controlled. Exposure minimized. The house always positioned to win. He built relationships with outfit figures who understood that gambling was cleaner than narcotics and quieter than labor racketeering. Rosenthal wasn't emotional. He didn't drink heavily. He didn't chase attention. He obsessed over margins. That obsession made him useful. In the Mafia hierarchy, soldiers enforce. Capos supervise.
Boss decide.
But the man who understands cash flow controls the bloodstream. By the late 1960s, Las Vegas was becoming the outfit's largest offshore vault. Casinos offered something Chicago never could: legal cover for illegal skimming. And they needed someone who could make the numbers move without attracting headlines. Rosenthal was the perfect choice. Not because he was feared, because he was efficient. The desert was waiting. Las Vegas in the early 1970s was not yet corporate. It was porous. The Stardust, the Fremont, the Hacienda. Behind the neon, counting rooms hummed late into the night. Cash was weighed, not counted. And before the official numbers were recorded, envelopes quietly disappeared. The system was simple. Money skimmed off the top, untaxed, unreported, unseen by Nevada regulators, traveled back to Chicago. Up the ladder, street crews collected, front men managed, capos supervised. The Chicago outfit leadership approved. Rosenthal was installed at the Stardust as the de facto boss of casino operations, though on paper he was only a consultant. He redesigned sportsbooks, adjusted betting lines, introduced parlay cards that multiplied house profit, tightened internal controls. Revenue surged. The Stardust became one of the most profitable casinos in Las Vegas. Millions moved through hidden channels. The skim wasn't reckless. It was structured. Counting room employees removed cash before it hit official ledgers. Couriers transported it to Kansas City. From there, it flowed to Chicago. The FBI suspected, but suspicion is not proof. Rosenthal operated in the open while the real authority remained in the shadows. He attended high-profile sporting events, hosted celebrities, appeared comfortable in front of cameras. That visibility was dangerous, because the Mafia thrives on distance between prophet and decision-maker. Rosenthal began collapsing that distance. He wasn't just the numbers man anymore. He was becoming the face of the operation. And faces can be identified. Identified faces can be subpoenaed. For the Chicago outfit, Las Vegas was a revenue pipeline. It needed to stay quiet, mechanical, replaceable. But Rosenthal was building something else. Influence. He began making executive decisions without always waiting for Chicago's approval. Adjusting internal structures. Reshuffling staff. Asserting authority in a city that technically wasn't his territory. Efficiency started to look like independence. And independence in Mafia mathematics is the first sign of disloyalty. The desert was profitable, but it was also watching. The mistake was not financial. It was visibility. In 1976, Frank Rosenthal applied for a Nevada gaming license. He had already been running the Stardust in everything but name. But licensing meant legitimacy. It meant stepping out from behind the curtain. The Nevada Gaming Control Board denied him. Publicly, the hearing exposed his documented ties to known members of the Chicago outfit. Surveillance files, prior arrests for illegal gambling, federal intelligence reports. The message was clear. He could run casinos quietly, but he would never officially own them. Rosenthal reacted by going louder. He launched a local television show from the Stardust, The Frank Rosenthal Show. Politicians, athletes, entertainers sat across from him under studio lights. He asked questions like a civic leader, a businessman, a legitimate executive. But every appearance tightened federal scrutiny. The FBI increased wiretaps. Agents monitored casino counting rooms. Informants whispered about skimming percentages and courier routes. In Washington, organized crime hearings were resurging. The political climate had shifted. After years of denial, federal agencies were aggressively targeting Mafia infiltration in Las Vegas. Rosenthal's public profile now contradicted the outfit's primary survival rule: never attract structural attention. His feud with Nevada regulators became personal. He openly criticized them, filed lawsuits, challenged rulings. Chicago noticed. Not because of ego, because attention disrupts revenue. The skim depended on invisibility inside a legal structure. If the structure collapsed under investigation, everyone above Rosenthal would feel it. And power in organized crime flows upward. Rosenthal believed competence protected him. But in Mafia hierarchy, competence does not outrank obedience. The turning point was not the license denial. It was the moment he began believing Las Vegas belonged to him. By the late 1970s, the federal government was no longer pretending the Mafia did not exist. Congressional committees were reopening organized crime investigations. The FBI had refined its use of electronic surveillance. RICO statutes, passed in 1970, were beginning to show their full power. Las Vegas was now a national priority. The casinos were no longer seen as glamorous playgrounds. They were viewed as laundering mechanisms, financial arteries feeding Midwest crime families. And the Chicago outfit knew it. Wiretaps picked up fragments of counting room conversations. Informants described skim envelopes bypassing official accounting. Federal agents mapped courier routes from Nevada to Kansas City to Chicago. The pressure was building outward from Washington. Nevada regulators, under political heat, intensified scrutiny. Gaming license hearings became more aggressive. Background checks expanded. Associations were questioned. Rosenthal's name surfaced repeatedly in federal intelligence reports, not as a made man, but as the operational hinge. The political danger wasn't that Rosenthal might be convicted. It was that he might be flipped. In the post-Watergate era, prosecutors were emboldened. Cooperation deals were becoming more common. Witness protection programs were expanding. Loyalty was no longer guaranteed by silence alone. For Chicago leadership, the calculus shifted. The skim had already extracted tens of millions. But investigations threatened to expose decades of structured theft from federally insured financial systems and regulated gaming institutions. If one man became a liability, the hierarchy demanded containment. Meanwhile, inside Las Vegas, tensions escalated with Anthony Spilatro, the outfit's street enforcer assigned to protect the skim. Spilatro's violence attracted headlines. Murders tied to his crew increased FBI focus. Two problems were now converging: a public-facing casino operator and an uncontrollable enforcer. Washington saw corruption. Nevada saw infiltration. Chicago saw instability. The era of quiet skimming was ending. And when an enterprise built on secrecy faces national exposure, the organization does not ask who deserves protection. It asks who is expendable. Rosenthal was no longer just profitable. He was traceable. Anthony Spilatro was sent to Las Vegas to protect the skim. But he didn't behave like a protector. He behaved like a conqueror. Home invasions, jewelry store robberies, murders tied to his hole-in-the-wall gang, bodies discovered in desert outskirts. Each headline pulled federal attention closer to the casinos. Rosenthal despised the chaos. He wanted quiet counting rooms, predictable earnings, controlled risk. Spilatro wanted dominance. Their conflict was not personal at first. It was structural. The bookmaker needed stability. The enforcer thrived on intimidation. But tension turned public. Rosenthal banned Spilatro from the Stardust floor, humiliated him in front of subordinates, questioned his judgment openly. In Mafia hierarchy, public disrespect is a direct challenge. Spilatro responded by tightening his own circle. Loyalists, associates, men who answered to him, not Chicago. And Chicago was listening. The outfit leadership began receiving contradictory reports. Rosenthal accusing Spilatro of recklessness. Spilatro accusing Rosenthal of arrogance and independence. The desert operation was fracturing. At the same time, Rosenthal's marriage to Jerry McGee unraveled publicly. Police calls, domestic disturbances, tabloid headlines, drug allegations, instability. The image of controlled precision was dissolving. To Chicago bosses, Las Vegas now contained two unpredictable variables: an enforcer attracting indictments, and a bookmaker attracting cameras. Isolation happens quietly in organized crime. Phone calls slow down. Meetings exclude.
Décision arrive without consultation.
Rosenthal believed his earnings still protected him. But protection in the Mafia is conditional. It lasts only as long as the system remains undisturbed. By 1982, federal indictments were advancing. The skim was compromised. Spilatro's crew was under surveillance. The desert no longer felt secure. Chicago needed silence restored. And silence sometimes requires subtraction. The decision did not come from emotion. It came from arithmetic. October 4, 1982. Tony Roma's parking lot. The bomb was placed beneath the driver's seat of Rosenthal's Cadillac Eldorado. Not amateur work. Precision wiring. Remote detonation. Designed to obliterate the torso. The explosion tore through the vehicle the moment he turned the ignition. Witnesses described a fireball. Metal twisted outward. The front end collapsed. But Rosenthal crawled out alive. A steel plate beneath the driver's seat, installed by General Motors as part of the car's frame, redirected the blast downward. The bomb detonated. The execution failed. The message did not. Las Vegas authorities treated it as attempted murder. The FBI treated it as organized crime discipline. Chicago denied involvement. But motive requires no confession. By 1982, Rosenthal was under indictment in the federal Strawman investigation targeting skimming operations at the Stardust, Fremont, Marina, and Hacienda casinos. Surveillance had tightened. Witnesses were cooperating. Removing Rosenthal solved multiple problems. He was visible. He was central to the skim. He was increasingly isolated. Spilatro himself would be murdered 4 years later, buried in an Indiana cornfield alongside his brother. The outfit was correcting its Las Vegas instability piece by piece. Rosenthal survived physically, but survival did not equal restoration. After the bombing, he left Las Vegas permanently, relocated to Florida, exiled from the power structure he once dominated. In Mafia hierarchy, a failed execution still serves its purpose. It signals irrelevance. Rosenthal had once controlled the flow of millions. Now he was outside the structure, alive, but removed. The bomb did not end the investigation. It accelerated it. In 1983, federal prosecutors unveiled the Strawman indictment, a sweeping case targeting the hidden ownership and skimming operations behind the Stardust and other Las Vegas casinos. Midwestern crime figures were charged. Couriers, front men, outfit representatives. The counting room pipeline was finally exposed in court. Testimony described bundles of cash removed before counting, millions diverted before tax documentation, envelopes routed through Kansas City to Chicago. The invisible became documented. Several high-ranking members of the Chicago outfit were convicted. Prison sentences followed. The old Las Vegas skim, once treated as untouchable, collapsed under federal prosecution. Rosenthal, already barred from Nevada casinos for life, watched from Florida. He was not convicted in the central Strawman case. But he was no longer a power broker, no longer a casino executive, no longer the operational hinge. Corporate ownership replaced mob influence. Publicly traded companies moved in. Regulatory oversight tightened. The era of mob-dominated casinos began fading. Spilatro's 1986 murder signaled Chicago's final internal correction. Violence closed the chapter the bomb had opened. Rosenthal lived quietly for decades afterward. Occasional interviews, claims of loyalty, assertions that he had never been formally part of the outfit. He died in 2008, not in Las Vegas, not in Chicago, but far from the counting rooms where his influence once shaped millions. The skim era had ended, and the desert no longer needed him. October 4, 1982. The car explodes, flames rise, and Frank Rosenthal walks away. Feels like survival. But in organized crime, survival can be a slower form of removal. Rosenthal's story is not about violence. It is about structure. The Chicago outfit did not send him to Las Vegas to become famous. They sent him to manage a system. He mistook operational control for ownership, visibility for legitimacy, profitability for protection. But mafia power is not emotional. It is mathematical. Every person inside the hierarchy exists on a ledger. Income generated, risk created. When risk outweighs income, subtraction follows.
Rosenthal génératait millions.
Then he generated headlines. Then he generated federal attention. The bomb was not rage. It was accounting. And when it failed, exile completed the calculation. The illusion of organized crime is loyalty. The reality is replaceability. Rosenthal once controlled the flow of money through Las Vegas. Yet when the structure tightened, he stood alone in a parking lot, turning a key. The explosion did not mark the end of his life. It marked the moment the system no longer required him. In the mafia, power is borrowed, and silence is permanent.